I never thought I'd be writing this, but I need to share my story. I'm 17, and my life has been anything but normal. Growing up, my mom was my best friend. We'd go shopping together, watch movies, and do all the typical mother-daughter things. She wasn't just fun, though. She had rules and boundaries that I respected. We had a good balance. My dad was different. From my earliest memories, he seemed uninterested in being a father. Despite being a stay-at-home parent, he spent most of his time playing video games in his room. Mom would come home from work to find no dinner made and the house a mess. This led to arguments, with Dad often leaving the house angry. As I got older, I started to understand how wrong this situation was. Mom would ask him to find work or help around the house, but he'd claim he was researching through his gaming. According to Mom, he used to have a good tech job when they first met, but he was laid off when she got pregnant with me. He wanted her to end the pregnancy, but she refused. They agreed he'd stay home temporarily to care for me while she worked, but temporary turned permanent. By the time I was 6, even my friends would tease me about having a jobless dad. Their parents gossiped about us, too. Dad had gained weight and stopped taking care of himself. He'd ask neighbors to handle school drop-offs because he wouldn't wake up early. Sometimes he'd forget to pick me up, and I'd have to get rides from classmates' parents. I'd come home to find him gaming or sleeping, completely unbothered. Mom finally had enough and took me to live with my grandparents. Dad visited, begging her not to divorce him. My grandparents warned him to change or else. Surprisingly, he did change, started exercising, got a job, and began spending time with me. He'd take me to parks on weekends, teach me badminton, and actually talk to me. Seeing this improvement, Mom agreed to move back home. But things didn't stay good. Dad started coming home late and was always on his phone. If I tried talking to him, he'd ignore me. Mom grew suspicious and eventually found inappropriate messages between him and his personal trainer. Their fight turned physical, and Dad hit Mom, causing her nose to bleed. I was terrified seeing so much blood. At the hospital, Dad warned me not to tell anyone the truth, saying I should claim Mom hit her face on a door. He said if I told the truth, he'd be taken away, and it would be my fault. Being young and scared, I kept quiet. Mom recovered, and Dad promised to cut contact with the trainer. They pretended nothing happened, but that was just the beginning of what would become a pattern in our lives. When I was 11, we used to visit my mom's old college friend Sophia and her husband James at their beach house every summer. I enjoyed playing with their nieces and nephews who also visited. Dad usually stayed home, but one summer he decided to join us. The first few days were normal, but then something happened that changed everything. One afternoon, I couldn't sleep or focus on my book, so I went for a walk near the beach. That's when I saw my dad kissing Sophia. They weren't even trying to hide. Anyone walking by could have seen them. I ran back quietly, feeling sick. I didn't know what to do. I was scared of Dad's anger, but felt horrible keeping this from Mom. I didn't have to keep the secret long. James caught them by the pier the next day. He punched my dad several times. When Mom found out, she was furious, especially because Sophia was like a sister to her. Dad and Sophia tried apologizing, claiming it was a one-time mistake and they were drunk. Dad even blamed Sophia, saying she started it. They didn't know I had seen them before and knew they were lying. I was too scared to speak up. Somehow they convinced Mom and James to forgive them, but Mom ended our vacation immediately. That was the last time we saw Sophia. Looking back, I don't understand why Mom stayed with Dad after all his betrayals. Our lives would have been fine without him. Then last year, when I was 16, everything changed again. Mom had a severe stroke while driving. She survived but was badly injured. She became bedridden, needed help with everything, and was in constant pain. My grandparents took turns staying with us since Dad worked all day and didn't want to hire a nurse. I helped as much as I could after school, talking to Mom, helping change her, massaging her feet. But after just 2 months, Dad started complaining about money since Mom couldn't work anymore and her insurance wasn't covering enough. This made me angry because Mom had always done everything for us, and now when she needed help, Dad was complaining. My grandparents offered money from their retirement fund. My grandmother even gave Dad her jewelry to sell for Mom's care. But Dad kept asking them for more money, claiming it was for bills and rent. I knew what kind of person Dad was, so when I noticed him constantly texting again, I got suspicious. I managed to check his messages through his computer and found he was talking to someone named Rachel. I didn't read the messages, but it was clear he was cheating again. I couldn't believe he would do this while Mom was sick. I tried to stop it by blocking Rachel's number on Dad's phone, hoping she'd give up. But Dad caught me. He confronted me, yelling about touching his phone. I couldn't hold back anymore and yelled back that I was tired of him cheating on Mom. His face turned red, and he tried telling me I was too young to understand and should mind my own business. This made me even angrier, and I told him I knew about him and Sophia too. My grandmother walked in during our argument. Dad tried explaining himself, saying I was too young to talk to him this way and that I should respect him. But I was done being quiet. I told him how none of my friends' dads cheated on their wives and that I was ashamed he was my father. I probably didn't mean it then, but it hit him hard. He looked at me for a moment, then announced he was leaving us. I watched him pack while my grandmother kept asking what he was doing. Dad said this was why he never wanted kids. They ruin everything. He said he tried his best during Mom's illness, but after my words, he was done. He told us Rachel loved him. He didn't deserve this treatment. My grandmother called him pathetic, but he didn't care. He walked out without looking back. Everything happened so fast, I couldn't process it. Even though I'd spoken the truth, watching him leave was hard. I cried, blaming myself, but my grandmother assured me Dad had been looking for reasons to leave for a long time. I dreaded telling Mom, but surprisingly, she took it well. She tried calling Dad several times, but he never answered. When she saw how scared I was, she hugged me and said she'd always known he was a coward. She told me she had no idea how much pain I'd kept inside to protect them. She promised we'd be fine without him. Over the next months, my grandparents moved in to help while Mom recovered. I started tutoring to earn some money. Dad never called, even though I texted him several apologies. When Mom finally recovered and could walk again, she immediately contacted a divorce lawyer. Dad hadn't filed for divorce because he didn't want to pay child support or health insurance. When Mom tried to send him the divorce papers, he finally contacted her. He begged her not to divorce him, saying Rachel had left him weeks after he moved out. He'd been living in a cheap motel, too ashamed to come back. He said he thought Mom would call him after recovering so they could talk. But Mom was firm about the divorce. Since then, Dad has sent me angry messages and voicemails, blaming me for ruining his life and saying he wishes I was never born. Mom says he's just trying to avoid responsibility, but sometimes I feel guilty. But now, months later, things are different. The divorce is final, and Dad has to pay for my college. Mom is healthier and exercises regularly. My grandparents moved back home, but we visit them every weekend. Mom is looking for a new job, and I'm still tutoring. We don't have much money, but we feel happier. I'm planning to start therapy in college and have been writing in a journal, which helps. Sometimes I wonder if I did the right thing by confronting Dad, but seeing Mom smile again tells me I did. Looking back, Dad knew he had it good with Mom and was scared of losing his comfortable life. Instead of taking responsibility, he blamed me. I understand that now, and I'm glad I spoke up. We might not have everything, but we have peace, and that's worth more than anything Dad could have given us. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button to help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.